Today, I'll examine global supply chains through three connected lenses: social responsibility, ethical decision-making, and environmental impact. The key idea is that supply chain choices made thousands of miles away can directly shape a company's reputation, profitability, and long-term future. This is not simply an operations issue. It is a business environment and management challenge that affects how organizations create value, manage risk, and demonstrate responsibility to the people and communities connected to their products. A global supply chain is much more than the movement of finished products. It includes every step, from extracting raw materials to manufacturing, transportation, and final delivery, often across dozens of countries and hundreds of suppliers. That complexity also creates responsibility at every stage. Social conditions, ethical decisions, and environmental impacts anywhere in the chain can shape how the entire brand is perceived. The central idea is simple. A company is only as responsible as its least responsible supplier. Global supply chains can create serious social risks, particularly when production is concentrated in low-cost manufacturing regions. Labor exploitation is a central concern, including excessive working hours, poverty wages, and unsafe conditions. Child labor is another major issue, with an estimated 160 million children engaged in labor worldwide, many connected to supply chains. Human trafficking also persists through forced labor, affecting industries such as agriculture, seafood, and garments. These challenges show why responsible sourcing requires attention not only to products, but also to the people who make them. Global businesses constantly balance competitive pricing with responsible sourcing, and that balance creates difficult ethical choices. One common dilemma is whether to select a low-cost supplier despite questionable labor practices. Another is limited visibility beyond Tier 1 suppliers, making deeper supply chain conditions difficult to audit. Legal compliance also does not always guarantee alignment with broader global ethical expectations. Finally, companies may need to accept lower short-term margins to protect long-term brand integrity. The central challenge is treating ethics as a business responsibility, not merely a compliance exercise. This slide highlights three major environmental consequences tied to global production and consumption. First, carbon footprint. Shipping and manufacturing contribute a significant share of worldwide greenhouse gas emissions. Second, water and soil contamination, as textile dyeing, mining, and agriculture can release toxic chemicals into local water systems. Finally, deforestation remains a serious concern. Commodities such as palm oil, soy, and timber are major drivers of forest loss in critical ecosystems. Together, these impacts show that environmental costs extend well beyond the products we see and use. These case studies show how supply chain failures can become major human rights and reputational crises. The Rana Plaza collapse in 2013, which killed more than 1,100 garment workers, led to global backlash and industry-wide safety reforms, including the Accord on Fire and Building Safety. Apple faced scrutiny over working hours and conditions at Foxconn, prompting supplier audits and public responsibility reporting. And Nestle's cocoa supply chain was linked to child labor, driving commitments to sustainably source cocoa and farmer certification programs. Together, these examples show why accountability must extend beyond a company's own facilities. Reputational risk can move through the supply chain at extraordinary speed. A supplier's misconduct may begin as a discovered bad practice, but media amplification can quickly turn it into global reputation damage, affecting brand trust and revenue. In the social media era, a factory scandal can become a global headline within hours. Consumers, investors, and regulators increasingly hold brands accountable for the entire supply chain. 73% of consumers say they would stop buying from a brand exposed for unethical practices, while ESG scores can also influence investor confidence and credit ratings. The financial consequences of supply chain ethics are substantial. An estimated $450 billion is spent globally each year because of disruptions tied to ESG-related crises. McKinsey research also indicates that 28% of annual revenue may be exposed to supply chain ESG issues. And when an ethical crisis damages reputation, recovery can take 3 times longer than recovering from financial losses. The bottom line is clear. Supply chain ethics are not only a moral concern, they are a core financial risk management priority for globally operating businesses. This slide highlights the legal frameworks making supply chain accountability increasingly formal and enforceable. The key shift is from voluntary commitments to required transparency, due diligence, and disclosure. The UK Modern Slavery Act requires large companies to report on slavery and trafficking risks. The EU directive mandates human rights and environmental audits. In the United States, the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act bans imports linked to forced labor in Xinjiang, while SEC climate disclosure rules require public companies to report climate-related risks. Together, these measures raise expectations for responsible sourcing and documented oversight. Responsible supply chain management depends on visibility, clear expectations, and accountability. First, map every supplier tier and use regular third-party audits to check compliance, including beyond direct suppliers. Next, set a supplier code of conduct aligned with ILO standards and environmental benchmarks, so expectations are explicit. Transparency strengthens these efforts through blockchain and digital traceability tools that follow products from origin to end use. Finally, public reporting signals accountability, giving stakeholders a clear view of ESG and sustainability performance and demonstrating that responsible practices are being actively monitored. The key takeaway is that supply chains carry both moral and financial risk, because every tier reflects on the brand. Ethical failures spread quickly, while recovery takes years. As regulation accelerates, compliance becomes strategic. Proactive responsibility builds resilience and strengthens talent, investor confidence, and customer loyalty.